This is the Citizen Effect Podcast.
What is one of the most meaningful cases that you've handled where you had to stick up for the little guy and the odds were against you?
Oh, wow. So we've done, we've been able to do, my practice is mostly personal injury and dealing with insurance companies and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of great insurance company stories. They love to take advantage of people. They love to, especially people who they don't think will stick up for themselves. But I think my favorite, I have a really, I've got a couple of fun ones, but I'll start with the more serious one. We represented a family they were from a town called Bonner's Ferry, and it's up in the panhandle of Idaho, about 15, 20 miles from the Canadian border. So way up north. It's about a 12-hour drive from my town. And
Wow.
They had a nice house out in the middle of the forest, nobody around. And it was a couple that had been married for a while, and they were raising about 4 grandkids because they had a daughter who struggled with some addiction problems and things like that. And so they took this on them, and we're raising this family, and a couple of those kids were special needs. And so they were going into Spokane, Washington, the next biggest town, or the biggest city near them where they could get treatment. And they got a call in the middle of the night that their house had burned down out in the forest. And obviously it was a total loss. So all their possessions, their home that they had saved for was gone. And their insurance company came in and said, "You guys started this fire. You did this for the insurance money." And being in Spokane, Washington was just to cover up. So you could have an alibi, essentially, that we think you started this fire, so we're not paying for anything. And some of the reasoning for that was that they had, they filled out all the forms for making claims, and they put on there that they had, like 3 handguns and about 4 rifles and a couple of shotguns. And they're like, look, and these adjusters were like from big cities back east. They looked at this and they go, like, come on, nobody has that many guns. And we're like, no, this is Idaho. Like,
That's a conservative amount of guns.
Yes, that is very reasonable. And those people believe they're the front line of defense against the Canadians should the Mounties decide to cross the border.
It's one of those places where if you don't have one, they give you one.
Right, exactly. There was a few other funny things like that where they just didn't understand these people and their culture. And they drug them through everything to the point that they ended up having to load up in their car with what little they had, drive to the mom's sister in California. She had a little 1-bedroom home, and all now 7 people were living there because they didn't have anywhere else to go. And they called us up one day. They had actually gone to a lawyer in California, and he had searched for, insurance lawyers in Idaho, got them in touch with us, and we went through the whole process. And this company was terrible, just terrible. And they treated them horribly. They and the way they handled the claim was just awful, but they knew that they could get away with it. These folks were not incredibly intelligent. They hadn't had a whole lot of schooling. They were very simple folks with huge hearts, and they didn't know how to navigate this process. But here's the big but is they were a little different. And of course they were people of simple means and not a whole lot of education, and lived in the middle of nowhere. And so we actually went to trial on that after years of litigating it. And we lost. And it was just devastating for this family. And in talking with jurors after the verdict, they said, What was it? And they said, well, everything the insurance company did seemed really bad, but your folks were just kind of weird. And so we thought maybe they might have had some involvement just because they came across weird. And I'm not going to lie, our clients were weird. Like, they were a little socially awkward and not very well spoken and that sort of thing. And that's always tough with juries. And you guys know better than anybody doing your criminal work. Juries can do anything, and they can hit on any little fact. And that can be very, decisive for them, even though the attorneys and the judge and everybody else aren't really focusing on that. But they honed in on a couple of things, and that just was the decision maker for them. And this family was just devastated, and I was devastated. Like, I had poured my heart and soul for about 3 years in this case. And they're like, what can we do? And so I just started diving in on what we could do. And we actually filed a post-trial motion with the court to set aside the jury verdict because there was no actual evidence that these folks had done anything wrong. It was just a company alleging it. Like, they had brought in a cause and origin guy on the fire, which was inconclusive. They said they're lying on their forms about the personal property that they had with things like guns and stuff like that. But they hadn't even gone to the scene to see if like any remnants of that was left. And the company really screwed this up. And so we ended up filing a pretty heady motion with the court, post-trial motion. And this was federal court up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And just pointing out all, where all the weight of the evidence was. And we knew it was a long shot, but the court actually came back and turned it around.
Nice. Yeah.
The judge commented that he'd been on the bench for a long time. In fact, he just retired a little bit ago. And he said, I've been on this bench, the federal bench, for about 30 years. And he goes, I've done this one time before, and that's it. And I get them filed all the time. But he goes, you guys were in the right. There is no evidence to have treated this family this way, to deny the policy benefits. And ultimately, the company ended up having to pay out, take care of our clients. And I mean, that obviously, we want to win. We want to get good results for our clients. But in that situation, winning literally meant getting their lives back, which, I know you guys appreciate in the criminal realm. When you win, people literally get their freedom back. Yep. For these folks, it was very, very similar. Very meaningful to be able to help out these folks and the kids. And these are folks that would have never been able to navigate this process by themselves. It was a good fight, and it was a tough one to take when we lost. But I was really proud of the way we bounced back and were able to still stick up for the little guy even after pretty significant setback.
Thank you for watching this video. We've grown so much, and we're now looking to get to 10,000 subscribers. If you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, and to make sure that you see more content from me and channels like me, you ring the bell and click the like button below.